No one can make an intelligent decision without being properly informed. This is why this world wants to control the media. This is why media hype can take you up, take you down. So you don't know anymore who's really good, because the media can make a wicked man look good and make a good man look evil. That is why.
Yo, you are watching a new edition of the Final Call News Hour. We haven't seen you in a little while. So today we have a couple of issues that we're going to come out of. First, this one. This is volume 32, number 7. Obama's next moves. President wins historic second term, but how will a divided nation move forward? What about us? After 4 years of waiting, what do loyal black voters deserve? That's the first issue we're going to come out of. But then we also want to deal with this particular issue, being that it's holiday season, and that is no thanks to Thanksgiving. Holiday hides dark history of the slaughter of Native people and history of exploitation that includes enslaved Africans, mocking the poor, and getting you to buy things you don't need. Why? It's time to dump the celebrations and keep your cash in your pocket. Man, this is the only news that you can get from the greatest newspaper on the planet, which is the Final Call newspaper, which is the most widely circulated black owned and operated publication in the world. By the way, in case you do or did not know, my name is Herman Muhammad, and I am the host of this wonderful news program wherein we take articles from the latest edition of the Final Call newspaper and just parse them, discuss them, and inform you of things that you may or may not have known, because this sort of coverage that you receive in the Final Call newspaper, you aren't going to receive it in any other publication. Now, again, of course, the first story we're dealing with is our brother's re-election, and that is Brother President Barack Hussein Obama, who was elected historically this past November for a second term. And if I must say so myself, in my view, he crushed Mitt Romney. You know, the naysayers will say no, he didn't, but you know, that's a matter of opinion. But when you look at it and how it all broke down, they were talking about how this was supposed to be an unprecedented election, how it will probably be the closest election that we've seen in quite some time, that we wouldn't know on Tuesday whether or not Barack had won or Romney had won, that the lawyers for both parties were already geeked up and ready to go and ready to fight this thing out in court. But at the end of the day, at the end of Super Tuesday, which was Election Day, there was no doubt Barack Obama smashed Mitt Romney, what is his real name? Willard Mitt Romney, in the election, to where he didn't have to win Ohio, he didn't have to win Florida, even though he won all of those states. So there was no question about whether or not Barack Obama won. He definitely won, hands down. Okay, so on page 3 of this particular edition of the Final Call newspaper, there's an article here written by our senior correspondent who writes out of Washington, D.C. His name is Brother Askia Muhammad. On page 3, he writes, Obama's challenges. Can President GOP avoid fiscal cliff? And then right alongside of that, we have a story about whites wanting to secede from America after this historic win by our brother Barack Hussein Obama. And it reads, less than a week after his stunning re-election victory, President Barack Obama has waded into the next major battle of his presidency, the looming fiscal cliff of tax increases and drastic spending cuts that could tip the country back into another economic recession at the start of 2013. The metaphor of the fiscal cliff is taken from nature. It was agreed to by members of Congress who designed it to be so bad that the president and the Republicans and Democrats in Congress would agree to take action to avoid going over it. Just in time, that time is at hand with the lame duck session of Congress, which began November 13th and which is required to act before December 31st in order to undo the trap they set for themselves in a previous budget battle in August 2011. All right. So, really what the article is dealing with, to make a long story short, because we're going to move very quickly through this information, is that Barack Obama, of course, like I said, he was elected overwhelmingly, but he faces enormous economic problems as the country teeters on the brink of another so-called recession. Now, we know as black people that whenever there's a recession in the overall community, there's a depression in the black community. But the reality is we're not tripping because we've always been in a recession or a depression. And so we know how to deal with these economic times. We just tighten our belt and we make things happen. And the reality is, in regards to presidents and how they affect us politically, we have never received anything from a president in the way of promises made to black people anyway. You see what I'm saying? Now, Barack Obama, an article talks about this, was elected overwhelmingly. He was supported overwhelmingly by black people this time as he was the first election. Over 93% of our people voted for Barack Obama. Now, I want to read this piece and then I'll build on that, why I say that. It says, United States President Barack Hussein Obama defeated opposition Republican Party candidate Willard Mitt Romney for a second four-year term in an election that cost a reported $2 billion and was marked by sharp racial, ethnic, and economic division. The fact that 70+% of white men voted for the Republicans and they lost is a real turning point, said Dr. Gerald Horne, University of Houston professor of history and African American studies. Now, that's to say that the demographic in America is changing dramatically, and overwhelmingly America is becoming darker and darker and darker. It's becoming browner and blacker, and white people are less and less of the majority of the electorate as time progresses. With that being said, the question is asked, what about us? After 4 years of waiting, what do loyal black voters deserve? And we deserve a lot, because we've stood behind this man both terms. But we know and understand political realities, especially those of us who follow the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We know and understand political realities because we know that Barack Obama can't really do anything for us. He can't do more for us than what we can do for ourselves. So we have to be more politically intelligent and more politically astute and more keen to political realities so that we don't get caught up thinking that Barack Obama can do something for us that we can and must do for ourselves. All right? So, I mean, that's just a waking point. And I just want to say this about this 70% of overwhelming white people who voted for Mitt Romney, or white men in particular, because a lot of white women actually voted for Barack Obama because of Mitt Romney's stance on abortion and women's rights and things of that nature. But the reality is, pardon me, just seeing somebody coming into the door of Devil on the Run Studios. But the reality is, my train of thought here, is that now, since these angry white men were the overwhelming constituency that voted for Mitt Romney, that you got a lot of white people who are talking about seceding actually from the country. As a matter of fact, 20 states were talking about seceding from the United States of America because Barack Obama was re-elected president. Now, on the face, that sounds crazy. And there's some deep political and historical repercussions that's dealing with. But let me say this. The Nation of Islam has long supported separation, right? But when we supported separation, and we've been advocating this for 80 years, and let me just read it from the back page of the Final Call newspaper so that you know and understand exactly what I'm talking about. And on every back page of the Final Call newspaper, you have the Muslim program and what the Muslims want and what the Muslims believe. And on point number 4, what the Muslims want, it reads, we want our people in America whose parents or grandparents were descendants of slaves to be allowed to establish a separate state or territory of their own, either on this continent or elsewhere. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to provide such land and that the area must be fertile and minerally rich. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to maintain and supply our needs in this separate territory for the next 20 to 25 years until we are able to produce and supply our own needs. Since we cannot get along with them in peace and equality after giving them 400 years of our sweat and blood and receiving in return some of the worst treatment human beings have ever experienced, we believe our contributions to this land and the suffering forced upon us by white America justifies our demand for complete separation in a state or territory of our own. Again, that's on every back page of every Final Call newspaper that you will ever read. And it just drives the point home. But the thing that I wanted to point out was how legitimate it is in regards to whites wanting to secede from the Union because Barack Obama was elected president, and how illegitimate it is when black people, particularly those in the Nation of Islam, have been advocating separation and secession from the Union in that sense for 80 plus years. You see what I'm saying? See, it's always the same, that white supremacy reigns so supreme in this country. Institutionalized racism reigns so supreme in this country that the white man's sugar is always sweeter. His water is always wetter. You see what I'm saying? His ice is always colder. But the reality is, man, we've been advocating this thing for well over 80 years. So just think about that. Now we want to move again on to the next piece. And you know, you can comment, hit me up on my Facebook. My Facebook name is Herman Supreme Style Muhammad, or you can hit me at Twitter at Brother Herman on Twitter.com. So just go ahead and hit me up. I'll be glad to exchange with you. The next issue, of course, deals with no thanks to Thanksgiving. And again, this particular, this comes out of issue volume number 32, issue number 8 of the greatest newspaper on the planet, the Final Call newspaper. Now, we want to just delve into this a little bit because, you know, I don't really want to ruin your holidays. And let me say for the record that Thanksgiving and the holidays are great times for you to get together with your families and to enjoy camaraderie, brotherhood, sisterhood with those people that you're related to, and to break bread and to catch up. All those things are wonderful. All of those things are wonderful. But what we want to do is we want to be cognizant and conscious of everything that we want to so-called celebrate. Now, don't get it twisted. Like I said, I spent time with my family, you know, and hung out and caught up, and, you know, praise be be to Allah. It was a great time. But let's know the origin and the truth of these so-called holidays, or really they should be called holy days if that's what they really are, before we delve in and get to celebrating. Now this particular article appears on page 3, and it reads, it's written by our sister who writes out of the West Coast. She's a national correspondent who writes out of Los Angeles, Sister Charlene Muhammad. And it reads, genocide, slavery, crushing debt, and depression. Truth uncovers lies, exploitation tied to Thanksgiving yesterday and today. And she starts out, family gatherings around massive feasts, excessive shopping sprees, and expressions of gratitude are the traditional things associated with Thanksgiving, but a dark history of atrocities and exploitation imposed on Native Americans and enslaved Africans still remains hidden, indigenous activists say. Now, I'm going to keep reading this because it's such powerful information that you have to know, and you can only get it in a publication, like I said, like the Final Call newspaper. The Thanksgiving myth, perpetuated each year, is that pilgrims, Puritans, and others came to America in search of religious freedom. But these settlers actually forced others to join their religion, observed Marilyn Vann, president of the Descendants of the Five Civilized Tribes Associations. Again, she reiterates, it is good for people to be thankful, meet with family and friends, and worship God. But the European society was not good for people of color. And the reality historically is that when they came into power, they killed others and set up a society that enslaved people of color, Ms. Vann told the Final Call. Every year, the United American Indians of New England mark a national day of mourning. Participants fast from sundown the day before through the afternoon on Thanksgiving to mourn their ancestors' genocide committed against their people and theft of their lands. This year's 43rd annual day of mourning, dedicated to political prisoner Leonard Peltier, is November 22nd in Plymouth, Massachusetts. The American Indian Movement leader is serving 2 life sentences for killing 2 FBI agents on the South Dakota Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. He was convicted in 1977. Mr. Peltier and his supporters have long maintained he was innocent and framed by the FBI. Given the history of the invaders as they came to this land for gold, for glory, and in their idea of God, they tried to stomp out anything that wasn't white or that was connected to the earth that they couldn't control. So they exterminated many of my people, then brought my African relatives to so they can continue doing their bidding, said Hector Perez Pacheco of the Azatlan Mexica Nation Harmony Keepers. It is a warrior society dedicated to protecting Native American sacred ceremonies. So again, this is just a piece in the Final Call about the true history of Thanksgiving. And we have to be sensitive to those that have suffered at the hands of these people who perpetuate this myth, and really what they do it for is so that they can get your money. Because what comes right after Thanksgiving now? You know, in this consumerized society now, we have Black Friday, right? Followed by Small Business Saturday, which is cool. I don't have any business with Small Business Saturday. And then followed by Monday, Cyber Monday, where people get online and purchase as much crap as they can, spend as much money as they possibly can without even thinking about it. But we are constantly being bombarded psychologically with these messages that we need to consume and consume and consume and consume and consume based upon these holidays. And if you look at it from a business standpoint, which I'm going to, because these people, that's what they're in. They're in the business to take as much from you as they possibly can. 30% of their sales is done on this particular weekend that we're just coming out of as I speak to you today. So I just wanted to drop those few little things on you And remember to pick up, man, the latest edition of The Final Call, which is No Thanks to Thanksgiving. And pick up the previous issue, which involves Obama's next moves. And there's so much more that we could have covered, but we're just getting acclimated and getting you back on, hooked on this Final Call News Hour. I'm your man, Herman Muhammad. We're going to come to you live from Devil on the Run Studios, which is now located at 7520 East Colfax in Denver, Colorado, at the new Supreme Styles. We recently made a move, and we're going to be making moves to look for Supreme Style Barber TV, featuring myself and Travis, Rocky's dad, Adams, as well as the other barbers from Supreme Style. We're going to bring you everything that happens in a barbershop. We're going to put it online to let you guys know the real deal of what's going on. In the meantime, man, if you get a chance, stop by. Here's the We're located at 7520 East Colfax, Unit B. That's in Denver, Colorado. 80220. Those are my numbers, 303-322-6941 or 720-300-0206. The site is currently under reconstruction, so please pardon us while we get that done, but the site is going to be live. It's going to have a blog. It's going to have everything about Supreme Style. It's going to have different styles and whatnot that you can come and check out. Again, come and check us out as much as you can. We're going to leave you in the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. We hope that you enjoyed this edition of the Final Call News Hour. Again, come and check us out. We're constantly marketing, and we're constantly upgrading this thing. If you're in the Denver area and you want to check out the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, come to our study group. It's located at 1440 Iola Street in Aurora, Colorado. You can call our student representative, Brother Corey 2X, at 303-956-5899. Gonna leave you again and let you know that, you know, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Peace, and we out. Come and visit.
Nothing to get. Plan, plot, organize is the way we live. Burn out plyometrics, sharpen the skills. Speed and power on point, you should know the deal. Full contact, jumping jack, breath control. Bruce Lee kick knowledge with so much soul. Notorious Jack Johnson, no stranger to danger. You don't want to be on the wrong side of my anger. You seek every bang, cause now I'm a daily weapon. If you ain't trying to get it, then you should get the stepping.
Left, right, uppercut, you can't touch me. You just can't touch me.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Mike, was that your shortest fight ever?
I bear witness there's only one God, and Muhammad's blessings and peace be upon him as his prophet. All praise be to my children, I love you. There's no one can stop me. Lex is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander, he's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous.